week's episode of Boogie's World. So last month, kind of rung off the new year with sharing a sermon that I got to share on my birthday. Um, so far going into this new year, a lot has happened. A lot has went down. Um, just with like everything that's been going on, you know, we go through so many things in life where we feel like we don't know who to go to, where we feel like we can handle things on our own. Well, I'll just go ahead and say, like, we can't do life alone. We can't go through life alone. Because, one, first and foremost, there's a God who loves us and cares for us and that wants us to be surrounded by his people. And two, today I shared a devo in the morning meeting I had today. And so kind of went over we're kind of going over these like leaders in the Old Testament series. And so the leader I chose was Jacob. And so before I kind of like go into that, like, who was Jacob? So Jacob, his life reminds us that God can use anyone, though it will always be on his terms and not ours. So when I think of that, I think of like, God can use anyone, no matter how bad they are, no matter how many times they've messed up. God can use anyone to turn their life around and honor him for his will and not ours. And so Jacob spent his life cheating others until God wrestled it out of him. So just to sum up Jacob's life, Jacob was born right behind Esau. And their father was Isaac. And so Esau sold his birthright to Jacob after Esau wanted food. Esau told Jacob was cooking up some food. He was getting ready to eat it. And Esau was like, I just got back from the woods. I'm hungry. Can I get some food to eat? But then Jacob was like, I'll give you some food, but I want the birthright. This birthright was that Esau's the older brother. And Jacob wanted that. So Jacob tricked Esau into the birthright for food. And so Jacob takes the birthright. Jacob does all these other things and tricking people, which is not good. And then he sees a woman that he loves. And his uncle tricks him into marrying Leah instead of Rachel, before Rachel. And Rachel was the woman that Jacob loved. And so throughout this time, Jacob responds by trickery with trickery until up to the point where he just runs away and just goes away and goes off somewhere else. Now, God wrestles Jacob where it changes him because he couldn't overcome God. He couldn't take his strength and realize that he was doing things on his own. Jacob was doing so many things on his own, tricking people left and right. But then God came in and humbled Jacob. So in Genesis 32:22 through 32, it says, during the night, Jacob got up and took his two wives, his two servants' wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. Then the man said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." Jacob said, "I will not let go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked. He replied, "Jacob." "Your name will no longer be Jacob," the man told him. "From now on you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won." "Please tell me your name," Jacob said. "Why do you want to know my name?" the man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God, for he said, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared." The sun was rising as Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury of his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. So, so pretty much the way that Jacob's hip was out of socket and he was walking with a limp, it kind of how I was kind of like rephrasing it was kind of like the 1996 Olympics when Kurt Angle won the gold medal in a wrestling match with a broken neck. That's how I kind of look at it as. Jacob needed to walk humbly before God and not rely on his own strength. And just 3 takeaways that I have from this is you reap what you sow. And in Galatians chapter 6 verse 7, it says, "Do not be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant." So just realizing and understanding that every time Jacob was tricking people left and right, he was also getting humbled in the end. He also got humbled in the end. God gave Jacob the name Israel, which means God fights, or he fights with God. And so Jacob wrestled with God. Granted, his hip was out of place and he was walking with a limp, but he realized that he was humbled by God and did not need to rely on his own strength, but really needed to rely on God. And God can use anyone, though it will always be on his terms and not ours. So overall, just really looking at that and realizing what Jacob went through, if Jacob can realize that he can't rely on his own strength, but he can rely on God, then us as believers have to know and understand that we cannot rely on our own strength, but we have to rely on the strength of God and rely on God and allow God to be there for us no matter what we go through in our life. And so that is it of this week's episode of Boogie's World. Next month we'll have something planned out for you guys, cook up something for you guys for next month. But we'll see y'all next month. Peace.